turn on my microphone, which is the advertised time for this meeting at the Zoning Board of Adjustment to take place. So I will now call the meeting to order. I would like to first of all introduce the staff. On my immediate left, closest to me, is Planning Director Julia Crane. How's that, ma'am? All right, you can get closer too. I've got a kind of a cold and I'm not speaking as well as I would like to. Okay. So I introduced Julia Crane, Planning Director. Next to Julia is Joella Thomas, Assistant Planning Director. And on Joella's left is Aidan Dennehy, Planner. Also at the in front of the computer screens down there is Becky Roll, and she'll be keeping track of things and making sure that we record the minutes of this meeting. This board that's present, on my far right is Brian Higgins, Tyler Schaefer, Stephen Coe. On my left is Shanna Adams, and next to Shanna is Garrett Craig. My name is Dave Wing, and I'll be chairing the meeting tonight. It appears is there any new business? It appears that the first matter on our agenda is variance application 2415. An application by Trevor Bear. Is Mr. Bear present? And looks like you got this one, Aidan.
Yes. Are we good to begin?
We are.
All right. So we'll start with 610 West Park Street, variance application, variance 24-15. Okay.
That's okay. Get to where you can hear.
Sorry. Okay. Variance application 24-15. Applicant Trevor Bear, proposal to locate 2 duplexes on existing uptown lots varying from provisions outlined in the Butte-Silver Municipal Code, Section 1714, R3 Multifamily Residential Zone. Background, Section 1714-50 requires a minimum lot area of 7,500 square feet for a 2-family dwelling. Section 1740-60 requires a minimum lot width of 75 feet for a 2-family dwelling. Section 1714-80 requires a minimum side yard setback of 8 feet for a 2-story structure. The applicant is proposing to construct 2 20 by 51 duplexes on existing 2,190 square foot identical adjacent lots featuring a 31-foot street frontages with a requested 5-foot side yard setback. The parcel is surrounded by other residential uses in the R3 zoning district, including single and multifamily dwellings, and is in close proximity to commercial uses such as the Hummingbird Cafe, a barber shop, and the Butte Community Garden. The front yard setback will be averaged analyzing existing structures within the 600 block of West Park Street. The applicant's proposed 10-foot front yard setback is consistent with buildings in the area. Approval of the proposal may contribute to the construction of infill housing utilizing existing and formerly residentially developed lots in proximity to existing utility infrastructure. The proposed duplexes would be, in part, replicating historical development patterns within the Park Street block. This is our 2 aerial views, one of our zoning map on the left, and on the right is a Google area view featuring the 2 lots. A variance must not be contrary to the public interest. Lot area, lot width, and setback requirements of zoning districts are designed to complement one another and promote cohesive development for neighborhood aesthetics, density, and compatibility of uses. The required minimum lot area for a 2-family dwelling is 7,500 square feet. The lots in questions are 2,190 square feet. The proposal is consistent with the prevailing character of the neighborhood, but potential impacts to the adjacent property owners must be considered. One potential impact is on-street parking congestion. However, the duplexes will feature additional parking pads behind the structures to help mitigate this potential issue. The requested side yard setback of 5 feet meets or exceeds the typical side yard setback for existing two-story structures in the 600 block of West Park Street. Additionally, they would provide adequate access for emergency personnel as they comply with the minimum 5-foot side yard setback requirement for two-story structures as required by the 2021 International Building Code. Continued development standards were adopted in 1978, over 60 years after the majority of Uptown Butte was developed. Historical development patterns of the late 1800s through the 1930s resulted in considerably higher densities than what is now permitted under zoning. A majority of residential structures in the Uptown area were built on what today would be considered substandard lots. These structures include duplexes, fourplexes, and in some cases sixplexes. Current requirements for setbacks, lot areas, and lot widths are often not present. Conclusion of law, a 2-unit dwelling is permitted in the R3 zone and will provide much-needed residential infill development. The proposal is consistent with that described in the Uptown Edge Place type of the comprehensive plan, which blends more neighborhood-scale commercial uses with traditional multifamily development. The proposal would not be contrary to the public interest. Literal enforcement of the provisions of this title will result in unnecessary hardship. Unnecessary hardship must be unique to the property, such as property shape, topographical feature, or geological trait. This hardship may not result from a condition created by the applicant. Zoning was adopted in 1978. The prescribed development standards adopted within areas not formally zoned were not generally limited in available land for development. However, the existing buildings in Uptown Butte, including this neighborhood, were developed at a much greater density. Therefore, a majority of existing development in Uptown Butte is non-conforming with the development standards adopted in 1978. In the case of the proposal, each lot is 31 by 71 feet, which is typical for the area, though slightly smaller than the typical 30 by 100 foot lot. The required parcel width for a new development of this type is 75 feet. The shallow depth and narrow width of the lot provides a hardship. A hardship is present. It may be reasonable to allow a reduction in the side yard setbacks, a reduction of the 75-foot frontage and 7,500 lot area minimums to 31 feet and 2,190 square feet, respectively. The proposed project is consistent with historical and existing density patterns in the neighborhood and Uptown Butte. The next 3 slides are going to feature Sanborn maps. These maps were originally created as a way to visualize risk for fire insurance purposes. They show dwelling units, and typically these maps featured what the dwellings were made of, where windows and access points were, as well as their accessory structures. But it's also a good way to look back about how neighborhoods have evolved over time. In the red square, you can see the 2 lots in questions were some of the first to feature residential dwellings. And this is in 1890. Just 10 years later, in 1900, you can see the rest of that 600 West Park Street block was developed. This is just to show how density was common in this area historically. The next map will feature, again, those same parcels and the rest of the neighborhood as it has filled up over time. This was an original duplex that sat on what would be the westmost lot. It was demolished in 1989, but that lot was historically utilized as a duplex. You can see there are other buildings to the left and right partially. This is what the two lots currently look like in the neighborhood. They have sat vacant since the two structures were demolished. Here is just a general drawing of the setbacks and site plan. You can see the front and rear feature 10-foot side, the front and rear feature 10-foot setbacks, and the sides feature 5-foot setbacks. This is the proposed project design. The spirit of the zoning ordinance shall be observed and substantial justice done. It appears that the public health, safety, and general welfare of the surrounding property owners may not be impacted by the applicant's request to locate identical two-unit dwellings on the non-conforming lot sizes of 2,190 square feet and within 5 feet of the side boundaries. The requested variances are compatible with historical development patterns of the 600 block of West Park Street, including the two lots in question. It would appear literal interpretation of the provisions of this chapter would deprive the applicants of rights commonly enjoyed by other tracts in the same district, because the proposal emulates the historical density and development patterns of the neighborhood and that of Uptown Butte, and meets the minimum side setback requirements necessary for building code compliance. Uptown Butte and its historical lot sizes present a unique set of developmental circumstances which predate zoning. In order to facilitate infill development consistent with existing uptown development patterns, approval of the variances would not be granting special privilege to the applicant, which would otherwise be denied to other existing development in the same district. The variance request maintains the spirit of the zoning ordinance and meets the intent of the R3 zoning district requirements. Without reasonable cause to prohibit varying from the regulations of the R3 zone, denying this variance would be unfairly applying regulations to some property owners and not others in the same zoning district. It appears that if this application were approved, the spirit of the zoning ordinance would not be compromised by the construction of the duplexes on 2,190 square foot lots and be located within 5 feet of the east and west property line boundaries. Conclusion, recommendation, and conditions. The intent of zoning is to prevent incompatible land uses or activities from impacting the health and safety of adjacent uses. The proposed infill development does not appear to be contrary to the public interest, as infill development, affordable housing, and greater density emulates historic patterns, are expressed public priorities in the 2021 Comprehensive Plan. The priorities bear a hardship owing to the conditions unique to the property. The proposal meets building code standards to maintain safety while allowing development of the non-conforming lots. Granting the variance provides relief from requirements enjoyed by others in the same district. Recommendation: approve the variance application based off written findings of fact described in the staff report with appropriate conditions. Alternatives: deny the application based on findings, or continue public hearing on the application. And that is the conclusion of this presentation.
Thank you, Aiden. Is the applicant, would you care to step forward and provide any additional information that you think might be useful to the board?
I'm not one to mince words. He did a really great job. But I am just invested in Butte, and I would like to see the continued development and bringing new people with affordable housing to the community and to revitalize uptown Butte. So that is the goal of this project.
Okay.
Thank you for your efforts and your time. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Can I ask you a question, please? Is this right next to the community gardens or?
It is across the street.
Across the street, okay. Gotcha. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anybody present that would care to speak in support of this application? I'm not hearing anybody. Is there anybody present that would care to speak against this application? Again, I'm not hearing anybody. So I'll close the public portion of the meeting and open it for board discussion. Tyler?
Mr. Chairman, since we have no opposition to this here tonight, I'm not aware of any written opposition to this. Seems like a perfect project for that location on a lot that's been empty for, I'm not very good at math, but a lot of years. So I'm all in support of it and would like to hear what anyone else has to say too.
Well, I personally think it's a great infill construction for this property. Uptown Butte is dense in that area, as it is most places, and this
Yeah,
would fit
I
right in.
live right below it and a few blocks below it anyway, on the same block, and there's a lot more dense fill ahead around me than.
Any further comments by any board members?
I mirror what, excuse me, I mirror what both of you say. It's filling a need and it's not out of the character of the area. Much like Tyler, my mother-in-law lives a block away from there. So yeah, the density is fully appropriate in my opinion.
Any further comments? None? Anybody care to make a motion with regard to this matter?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion, we approve variance 2415.
I'd second that, Mr. Chairman.
Been moved and seconded, and we can now vote and provide a detailed explanation. Thank you, Stephen. Thank you, Shanna. All 6 votes were for the motion, so it has been approved, and your application for a variance has been approved, and you'll be receiving a letter from the planning staff to that effect. And good luck with your project. The next matter on our agenda is special use application 24-13, an application by Rex and Maxine Williams and their agent McKinley Williams. McKinley is present? Okay, thank you. And do we have a report by Joella?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is for special use number 24-13 pertaining to 950 Caledonia Street in Butte. Special use permit application 24-13. The applicants are Rex and Maxine Williams are the owners and McKinley Williams the representative. The proposal is to locate a short-term vacation rental in an existing residence per section 1738-180, special uses allowed in the BSBMC, and the applicants are requesting to rent a one-bedroom old-style resident home for overnight stays and short-term rentals through online hosting program. Here is an aerial view of the property here. This is in an R2 zoning district with an OSD right behind it, and the Copper Trail runs directly behind the property as well. The comprehensive plan place type, the property is in question is located within the Uptown neighborhood place type in the comprehensive plan. This place type represents a traditional urban neighborhood with a predominance of single-family attached and detached residential units and limited neighborhood commercial. The Uptown neighborhoods are located within the Butte Historic District and are defined by the character and quality of architecture found at the turn of the century. Here's a front view of the property, and this is the back view here with the two-car garage. The proposed vehicular access, circulation, and parking. Vehicle access to and from the property is acceptable for the proposed use. The access to the front of the residence is provided via Caledonia Street. There's enough room for approximately 2 parking spaces along the street at the front of the residence, and there is the 2-car garage accessible through the alley. Handicap access may be a concern as both the curb and step, there are curbs and steps to the property, and they may pose accessibility challenges. Staff does believe that the applicant should state this in any listings for the rental. The property is on a 2,485 square foot lot in a 2-family residential zone. It's an old style 1-bedroom with approximately 824 square foot footprint. It resides in a neighborhood containing mostly single-family residents with lots ranging anywhere from 2,000 to 3,000 square feet in size. The applicants are not proposing any signage for the property at this time, and the existing lighting is typical of a residential neighborhood. And the applicant has stated there's no changes to the current lighting at the property. Some potential nuisances in most Airbnbs, traffic. As long as the proposed occupancy is consistent with the size of a typical family, and there wouldn't be any impact expected. The parking is adequate on and off street. We would suggest clearly addressing the property to prevent unintentional access to neighboring properties, and there is a potential for noise due to lack of concern for neighbors. Security monitoring may be put in place, and they may want to prohibit any parties for any excess noise. Conditions of approval. The applicant shall be required to secure a state of Montana public accommodation license through the Butte-Silver Health Department. Any remodeling of the existing residence performed to accommodate the proposed business will be required to meet all applicable building, health, and fire codes of Butte-Silver. The property address must be visible, including past dark and entrance being clearly identified. The applicant shall be limited to the occupancy levels as determined by the Butte-Silver Building Code and the Butte-Silver Fire Marshal. The occupancy levels shall be determined prior to business license approval. The applicants will be limited specifically to the business as stated and approved. Any future business expansions, changes in business, or building expansions will require further review by the Zoning Board of Adjustments. And the applicant will be required to acquire a Butte-Silver business license for short-term rentals. In conclusion, based on the above information, staff's analysis of the review criteria and any public opinions as it relates to the criteria, the board must determine if the applicant has presented evidence to the satisfaction of the board that said undue detriment will not result from the granting of a special use permit for this short-term rental. Section 1738-160, special or conditional use permit decisions of the board, requires staff to refer the application to the board within 15 days of receipt of the application and all requested information. The board shall within 60 days deny the application and give reason for the denial in writing to the applicants, or approve the application, and the zoning officer shall issue a zoning compliance permit with conditions specified therein. Thank you.
Thank you, Joella. Would the applicant care to step forward, please? Hi, how are you doing? Specifically, if we are to approve this particular application, the board has suggested that there be 6 conditions of approval. Have you reviewed those conditions? Okay. They're right here, so,
They should have been provided in the staff report that was sent to the applicant, and they were probably sent
this is
to.
the staff report.
They were probably
I have not
sent.
received that yet from my dad, but I will make sure I get that.
Your dad? Oh my gosh. Okay. Huh? He didn't fill you in? They were reviewed by Joella. She told you what they were. And you can take a look at a copy if you need to, but I want to find out from you right now if those conditions are acceptable.
Yes, based on the presentation, those conditions are acceptable. We shouldn't have any issues with that. It's a one-bedroom, one-bathroom home, approximately 900 square feet. The max guest number would be 2, allowed, mainly for Montana Tech parents and people coming to visit their kids at school.
Okay. Is there any additional information you would like to provide to us that might help us in making our decision?
This home's been in our family since 2013. My husband and I, we just bought a house on Quartz this year and moved out of 950 Caledonia, so we want to keep it in our family. And this was a way that we thought maybe we could do that with allowing my parents to also stay there
Okay,
and other family that comes to visit us.
okay. When did you vacate the property?
We vacated the property at the end of September.
At the end of September, okay. Thank you. Yes. Is there anybody present that would care to speak in support of this application? And you're the husband, I suppose, so you better speak in support of it.
Thank you for your time. My name is Kelvin Cameron. So speaking in support of this, like my wife said, I was a renter for a year and a half, and I would still be the renter if we didn't purchase our own piece of Butte. But during that time in the Caledonia neighborhood, came to make tons of friends and family. We'd be extremely remiss if anything we did negatively impacted that Caledonia neighborhood, because it's excellent the way it is. And I believe with the systems, the software online has in place, we'd be able to lock it down, limiting our occupancy to 2 people, as well as the parking. I know that's a big issue downtown here. Parking's a big deal, and was stated earlier, we have 2 spots, which is great, and parking in the back. And then, as well as, we only live 4 blocks away, which is nice, so we can keep our finger on the pulse really quickly, which is excellent too. Then, our neighbors behind me and Cornish's let us know when everything is going on, so we'd be able to keep a close eye on it. And the flexibility would be fantastic. It's awesome to have a place to keep the in-laws, even though they're close. So, I love them, but, and it's nice to have the flexibility in the house too. And it's a beautiful place, and the additional income would allow us to upkeep that building, because it is a beautiful piece of Butte. We want to keep it that way, as well as keep it in the family.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Before I ask if there's anybody that wishes to speak against this proposal, I'll note for the record that there have been 2 letters that have been submitted in opposition to this application. Is that correct?
It is correct, and I
Just for
can
the
read
rec-
those for you if you'd
I
like.
think that might be a good idea.
Neither applicant was able to be here tonight, so we received these emails today. The first one is from George Everett, and he resides at 943 Caledonia. His letter states, "Dear BSB Zoning Board of Adjustments, for your meeting tomorrow to consider a special use permit for short-term rental at 950 Caledonia, I am sorry I cannot attend in person, but I hope you will accept my comments on this matter. I was grateful that there is a hearing proposed to discuss the use of 950 Caledonia as a short-term rental through Airbnb. No one ever asked me what I thought of the idea, so I appreciate the opportunity to express my opinion about the detrimental impacts these short-term rentals have on our neighborhood and my city. I live across the street at 943 Caledonia. This is a residential neighborhood, and it would be ideal if it stays as one. Over 3 decades, I have watched as a very stable neighborhood has shifted to include quite a few rentals. We survive one obvious drug house with customers coming and going all hours of the night, rentals that became animal house style rentals with late parties and our share of firework enthusiasts during the holiday when they are illegal. But Montana has some of the highest rents in the state right now and a critical shortage of rental houses for local families. He quoted, "Monthly rent in Bozeman is significantly higher than the rest of the state's most populous areas, with median rent in Billings currently at $1,431 per month, $1,395 in Missoula, $1,300 in Great Falls, and $1,475 in Butte. Currently, rent in Bozeman is $2,400 a month. Big Sky Business Journal hot sheet, Monday, June 10th, 2024. This latest development, the Airbnb craze, only aggravates this problem of high rents and scarce housing. In communities across the country, the result of allowing Airbnbs to be developed in residential homes leads to higher rents and a reduced real estate market for local home buyers. According to AirDNA, which tracks Airbnb rentals, there are 272 homes in Butte that have been converted into nightly or short-term rentals, and now one has shown up on my block. Do they pay bed tax for these Airbnbs as they do for hotels and motels? This is a commercial enterprise in a neighborhood zoned as exclusively residential. If we get one, we will surely get more, or we may already have them operating other blocks. My primary objection is the impact they have on rental market and availability of homes in our community. Airbnb benefits the owner and out-of-state tourists at the expense of local residents searching for acceptable housing. They have the potential and actual impact of raising rents and inflating house prices. I appreciate the opportunity to express my opinions to allowing a special permit to allow Airbnb use in private residential without considering their full impact, but especially on Caledonia Street. Thank you, George Everett, 943 Caledonia Street, Butte, Montana." The second letter is from Barbara Miller. She states, "I am representing the resident of the home next door to 950 Caledonia who is expressing growing alarm and concern about the Airbnb visitors who have brought a great deal of stress. With the constant change in occupants of the short-term rental, the 950 Caledonia property has become a problem. The next-door resident said they are scared by an over-curious person staring in the front room window, scoping out the property, and the constant change of occupants. They said they no longer feel safe due to uncertainty of the next-door occupants and strange, unpredictable behavior of the Airbnb clients. Our neighborhood is supposed to be residential, not commercial. People want and need to know who is living next door to them. I manage the property at 946 Caledonia for the owner. Please put us down as being against this use as Airbnb. The housing is desperately needed for long-term rental or homeownership. Sincerely, Barbara Miller."
Thank you,
That's all.
Joella. Okay, is there anybody present in person that would care to speak against this application? Mr. Staples, long-term resident of Caledonia Street.
Mr. Chairman, for the record, my name is Tom Staples. I live at 951 Caledonia Street, directly across the street from the property. McKinley and your husband are very, very nice people. That is beside the point. A increase of traffic of unknown people coming and going on a regular basis, short-term rental, when the property adjacent to the east is closer than 10 feet. The bedroom window is, there's no separation whatsoever. Caledonia has excessive traffic at high rates of speed. It tends to be 1 one of the major accesses for student housing from the north and from people on Excelsior Street coming and going from Montana Tech. This additional unknown element coming and going in the neighborhood isn't going to be helpful. We have no idea who these people are or where they're from. They could be wonderful and all sorts of things, but do you want an Airbnb next to you or across the street from you with people coming and going on a regular basis? I'm sorry that they chose to do this without talking to us, but as the property owner directly facing them, I'm opposed to it. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else that would care to speak against this application? Okay. Okay, I'm not hearing anybody else, so I'll close the public portion of the meeting and open it for board discussion. But first, I'll ask the board if they have any questions of the staff with regard to this particular application. Okay, thank you. This appears to be a standard Airbnb or short-term rental application. So you can make our judgments accordingly. Any comments? Shanna?
I just had a comment on one of the emails. There was a comment about potentially having Airbnbs pay the bed tax. Is that something that the planning department has thought about or considered options for?
Yeah, it was George Everett's email.
And I know it's not something we're considering tonight, but I think it's just kind of worth noting. And so just curious on the planning department's thoughts on that.
Chairman Wing, Member Adams, the planning department does not regulate the taxation as it relates to short-term rentals in Silver Bow County. I am not familiar with the process that is used to levy that charge. I do know that similar to other public accommodations, these applicants are required to register as a public accommodations to through the health department and meet the state of Montana's requirements. We are not opposed to exploring the potential for that contribution to the larger bed tax.
Okay. Also, before we go much further, since there's been opposition to your application, expressed both in emails and in person, you now have the opportunity to rebut those particular allegations, so that we would have your rebuttal in front of us before we make our decision. If you want to just respond to what has been said, emails or otherwise.
Hello again. In response, we did talk to a lot of our neighbors, so that statement wasn't 100% true. Our neighbors next door to the left have expressed their support. Our neighbors behind us have expressed their support, and we have communicated. You know, we also care about our home in the neighborhood and our neighbors as well. A lot of them are extended family, especially the Cornishes. So we would do a full review of, you know, who's coming and going. Airbnb provides reviews for guests that have stayed at other places, so we can look at those reviews. If they have a bad review, they're not a good guest. Obviously, we would not let them on our property. As far as the houses being close together, we have no control over that. The house was built in 1890s, so we use blinds and everything like that. And I'm really nervous. I think that's it for my comments.
Okay, thank you.
And I do believe the city does get a tax for when people book.
Okay, thank you. Sir, would you care to say anything? Okay. All right. So I'll close the public portion of the meeting and open it for board discussion. In my opinion, there was a lot that was said in George Everett's email that is not based upon any particular documentation or fact. Ma'am, did you have something you want to say?
I just want to say that I also live across the street, directly across the street,
Yes.
and I support their efforts. Also, the neighbor next door, I have a text message from her, Janet Cornish, and she supports it as well.
Okay. Thank you for letting us know that. Oh, ma'am, I should have asked you for your name for the record.
My name is Dorothy Duddy.
Duddy? D-U-D-D-Y?
Duddy.
Like Fuddy Duddy? Thank you. Okay, so I think it's now the time when the board can discuss this particular matter.
Mr. Chairman, to me, this is just a standard Airbnb rental. I know people don't really want them across the street. I agree with a lot of the sentiment of how it distorts our rental market. Unfortunately, we just have no control over that. The concerns about rentals destroying neighborhoods, I get it, but I tend to come from the belief that long-term rentals are very troublesome. I've experienced that firsthand. People destroy houses. People who rent your house for 2 days and come and go from there aren't going to destroy it. So I understand why it's a protection of their investment as well. So I understand. I don't think it creates any more traffic than a family living there long-term or a family living there that purchases the house. I don't think that changes anything. So, and again, I just always want to echo that there's 200 and something of these we heard tonight, and we can count on probably 5 hands how many have ever came here. So I just, I want to thank the applicant for going through the process, because it's annoying, and in all honesty, probably doesn't even need to be done. So thank you. Gives us some say in that, but I also think we have nothing to say really, but I am in support of it for those reasons.
Okay. Any further comments by any board members? No. Ma'am? Okay, I'll what is it you want to say?
I just want to say that I have lived across the street for 40 years, and I've gotten to know the owners of the property that we're in question about. I feel that they make very wise choices as to who was renting the property.
Okay.
And they've taken very good care of their property.
Okay.
Not equally as well as the other ones that have opposed this.
Okay, thank you. And with that, I am finally closing any public comment. No further comment. Thank you for what you said, though. Any comments by any board members? Stephen?
I'll just chime in a little bit. I agree with Tyler on the front that, especially in that neighborhood, the long-term rentals have been more of an issue, and I can speak from experience growing up on a block away from this, and my father still lives in the house we grew up in. There's been a house I think it's now vacant, but has been a trouble, and it's been a long-term rental, and that may be some of the drug houses people are talking about, but I don't see typically people who do short-term rentals and Airbnbs as somebody who comes in and tears the place up and does these things. They're just looking for an affordable place to stay. So that's my opinion.
Thank you for your comments. Anybody else care to make any comments? Does anybody care to make a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion we approve special use permit 24-13.
Mr. Chairman, I would second it, but with the conditions as outlined.
The conditions as outlined?
Yes.
Okay. Thank
So
you.
moved.
We can now vote. Thank you, Shanna.
So funny. He's like my favorite.
All 6 votes are for the motion, so your application has been approved, and you will be receiving a letter from the planning staff to that effect, and I hope all goes well for you. Thank you. Is there anything else we should discuss? None? Okay.